Right, Mr. Peckham?
Yes, thank you.
Ready to carry on?
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Millett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Peckham, for coming back. Just before as we broke for lunch, the Chairman asked, I think, for some better indication of the internal layout of a command unit. The LFB have been kind enough to send us some photographs.
Yeah.
Now, these are not in official disclosure, so I am showing these to you for the first time, and I think seeing them for the first time. So let's see how we go. But can I just ask the documents director to display those, and perhaps as we display them, you can talk us through these. This is CSU1, so not I think involved at the incident. So what do we see there?
There's not a lot to see there, really. That's the front of as you look at the two whiteboards, that's the very front of the truck.
Right, and those are the steps out, are they, in the door?
Yeah, door to your left.
Right.
And there are, you can see some smaller seats that fold down, and then a little bench to your right.
Okay.
There'll be bits of equipment stored under those front seats.
Right.
Such as what? A camera that doesn't work would have been under there. And
right.
mesh nodes on the left that don't work would have been there.
Where's just point out the
when I say don't work, they've never been operational.
Right. Which is that? When you point out the mesh nodes?
Maybe on a different picture you might get a better view of them.
Okay. Can we just look at another picture?
Okay. The other one. Sorry. That's it.
Right. I see. So that's the door on the right.
Yeah.
Steps up.
Sorry, on our machine, they would be on the shelf on the right. They would have been. They've been taken off out of service. But.
Right. And what are those grey boxes that we can see on the shelf?
They look like chargers for batteries.
Right. Can you tell us where the radio is on this? Is it in this picture?
It's just out of sight. So if you see the chair,
yes,
it's just in front of that. So you've got a chair on the right, and you'd have it opposite that table. It's behind the screen, actually. I don't know if there is any other. That's clear now. Yeah.
Right.
So, so you've got two chairs. You can't quite see the one on the left, but they're basically opposing chairs. And at the very back, in the middle, would be a bank of 3 radios.
Okay. Okay. And what is the black piece of equipment with the lights on it to the right of the chair?
That is the computer system at the very back. And the batteries and everything that charge.
Okay. And you've got a screen which is showing a screensaver. What would normally be shown on that screen at an incident?
Depends what's called for, but the map or the hierarchy, or we could bring up emails, images captured from the scene we could upload.
Right. You say emails. Did you, at an incident, would you normally have access to? Would you be able to send emails?
You can get information via email, yeah.
Right. What network would you use if you were at an incident to send emails?
Whatever one's available. So normally would be we've got a 3G signal if we can get one.
Right.
So we don't choose it. The machine will pick the best signal in, and we see if we've got a connection or not.
Right.
We can sell that from the screen.
Right.
Also, we've got a mast that we put up to gain the best connection possible.
Right. Can I just ask you something?
Yes.
It just occurred to me. I mean, if you could send emails in the ordinary course using 3G from a command unit, could you send emails to people's mobile phones?
I guess you could, yeah.
Do you know whether there was anything to stop you or anybody else on either command unit sending FSG information from the computer via email to anybody at the Bridgehead's mobile?
I'm not aware of how strong the signal was.
Right.
It's not something that... these machines are getting quite old, quite dated now, so they can be quite hit and miss.
Right.
Whether we get a signal or not, if I'm honest. And they are getting towards the end of their life. Like IT-wise and computer-wise, so we don't always get a signal.
Right. So you don't always get signal. What would that depend on?
It could depend on a multitude of things. The IT itself, the coverage, the area.
Do you,
lots of things.
do you know whether? Do you know yourself whether anybody on the night in either CU8 or CU7 tried to use that computer to send emails of FSG information to anybody on the firegrounds mobiles?
No, it's not something that I would imagine. It's not something I've ever heard of anyone doing either. To be honest, it's not a system that we would use. It's not reliable enough, I don't think.
Okay.
You don't know who you're sending it to. I don't know if they would get numbers, who's got their phone with them, whether they could visibly get their phone out and it'd operate. It's not a line of communication I've known us to ever use.
Okay. Continuing with the equipment, in the CU, we've got those grey items lying on the shelf there. What's above them on the right there?
The plug sockets.
Those are the phone sockets.
Oh, no, below the plug sockets, you mean?
No, we've got on the wall above those three grey things. What are those?
They're plugs.
They're plugs.
Yeah.
Yes, and below those plugs, I can see the plugs. What's below the plugs?
They look like the mesh nodes, but they're not. I can't tell from here properly.
Right.
That doesn't resemble. They might be the updated chargers. I'm assuming this was taken recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and over in the corner,
Yeah, they're not.
between the black equipment there and the red thing, what is that?
Sorry, what I'm looking at?
In the corner,
Yep.
to the right of the black equipment,
Yep.
electronic equipment, what's there? What do we see there?
Okay, that's the switches for all the lights,
Right, okay.
air conditioning, raising and lowering the mast, and above that you've got a control for the dot matrix, which is like an LED display outside.
Right. And what's the red object?
That's a carrier for loading up, or for what's the word? For stowing nominal roll boards. So when machines and officers book in, that's where we would keep their nominal roll boards.
I see, okay. And below the computer screen, we've got what looks like a scanner, is that right?
A scanner and a printer.
And
yeah.
a printer. Okay, and what's to the left behind the big screen there? Is that another
there's
desk?
another door,
Yes.
and then behind that is a chair that would mirror the chair on the right.
Right. And do we see where the two mobiles that you described for us earlier are situated?
Right, they would be directly. So that big TV screen is mounted on like a board, if you like. They would be just on the back side of that board, at the very end, either end of the TV.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else in that photograph that you think you should point out?
Not in that photo. No, that's.
Okay. Can we have the next photo, please? Don't think that.
Yeah,
Well, we see a whiteboard there emerging on the left.
Yeah. So this is a slightly different layout. I don't know what CU this is.
CU1.
CU1. Okay. So that's updated from the night of Grenfell. There's been some changes on there.
Right.
As I say, the tough books, mesh nodes, etc., would be on the right-hand side along there,
Right.
Together with some different charging points for radios, etc. But other than that, there would be bigger whiteboards on the left.
Okay. Just looking at that picture and doing the best you can with any differences between CU8 and CU1, where do you think you were working?
Directly
got to
opposite the
CU1?
chair on the right.
Directly opposite the chair on the right. Okay.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have been able, you'd just to be able to see me, if you like,
Okay.
behind the screen to the left.
So you came in
By the door, by that emergency door.
Okay. I see. So you sat yourself down there.
I went
and-
straight in and the CU can get very busy. It fills up. It's not very big, and it fills up very quickly. So when we would turn up, we would look, unless we were directed otherwise, you'd look for a familiar face. So
Right.
my familiar face, and instantly it was Dan sitting in the chair.
Chair on the right.
Chair on the right, yeah, which is generally the radio operator's chair, and where you book in. So on most instances, you would do both initially, and I can't remember the conversation I had, but obviously he was extremely busy, so that's where I set up initially opposite him.
Okay.
And started assisting him.
So did you had? Is there anything between the two chairs that would obstruct your view?
There are
of him?
two smaller screens.
Right. Right. And what are they used for?
Because you can stand in front of that screen and input, but it's not always practical.
No.
So you can input it from, if you're doing, sometimes you might be doing 1, 2, 3 jobs at a time. You might be booking in radio and updating CSS. So you would do that from the screen round the back.
Okay. When you were on CU8, was the CSS working? Do you remember?
I believe it was working. I didn't get a chance to look at it for any length of time.
Okay. So we've got a whiteboard on the left there. Can we have another look and see if we can see the other end of the CU? So that you can still see the whiteboard on the left. Do you remember whether that whiteboard was being written on? If that's the same position of a whiteboard that it
I must say,
had
it
in
doesn't
CU8.
look like CU1 to me. I know it says it up there, but it's a lot different from when I looked at
Right.
CU1. So the whiteboards on the left are bigger. There's 2 of them.
Right.
There's only one there in the middle, so I don't know what's happening there. But on that left-hand wall, that buffer, that soft cushion
Yes.
isn't there. And
Yes.
there'll be generally two large whiteboards.
Right. Okay. Can we have a picture of the other end if it exists? Oh, no,
Yeah, there you can
this
see.
is the desk.
Yeah.
Right, and those are the 2 screens you were referring to.
Yes.
And the chairs, one of
Yeah.
which looks new. Okay. And on the right there, what do we see?
Those are where you can put memory cards, etc., to load images up, camera, disc cards.
Okay.
Like a card reader, sorry. That's
Right.
the word I'm looking for.
Okay. And let's see if there's anything else. I think that's it. Right. I don't think we have any pictures of the other end of the CU, Mr. Chairman. It looks as if... there is. Oh, I'm told there is. I'm told to keep scrolling down.
No, up.
No, top. There's that, as we looked at that earlier. That is the back end, as it were. No, is that the front end or the back end of the CU?
That's the front end.
It's the front end. And how different is that from CU8? Do you remember?
I imagine that is pretty similar.
Right, okay. So how many whiteboards were there in total on CU8?
4, I believe.
So 2 at the... Where would they be?
2 large ones on the right and those 2
Okay.
at the back.
Okay. Now, when you were sitting at the desk you've just shown us
Yeah.
by reference to this picture, did you have a clear view of any of those whiteboards?
No, far too busy. Too
busy. How many-
lots of people on there.
Okay. How many people do you think, on average, roughly, were in the CU, apart from you and Dan Merrick, for the period you were in it? CU8, that is.
Guesstimate 6.
Right,
There's a ballpark figure.
right. What were they all doing?
I mean, exactly what they were doing, I don't know. But obviously, this is an incident like we've never seen before. So they were obviously trying to formulate a plan and gather information, I would imagine, because it must have it was coming in at a rate at that point.
Okay. Now, let's just pick up the thread.
Can I just say thank you to the LFB for
Yes.
providing those photographs so quickly?
Yes.
It certainly helped me to understand what command unit looks like. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Yes, thank you.
It does say CSU 1 on there, but I'm not convinced that might be a bit of a misleading. This might be one of the CUs that's currently being refitted. I can't say that for sure.
But it tells me enough about.
Yeah, but there's
the
stuff on there
layout.
that looks new and slightly different.
Yeah,
Not
when you
enough to be.
spoke about sitting behind.
Yeah, that's the same.
at
The layout
table,
is the
I was
same.
trying to work out where the table was. Now I
Yeah.
can see. Thank you.
But it doesn't take many people to clutter your view.
No.
You know, three or four people on there, and you're not going to be able to see access to the boards, etc.
Now, do you remember any discussion about what was going on when you arrived at CU8?
No.
Do you remember any discussion about the advice that was being given by control to residents who were calling?
No discussion, no.
Norman Harrison recalls in his witness statement that when he went to CU8 first, he remembers that he said that he thought the stay put advice was wrong. Do you remember that?
I don't remember him saying it. No.
Do you remember a discussion between Norman Harrison and Dan Egan, or indeed anybody else, about the stay put advice?
Whilst on CU8?
Yes.
Not then, no.
Do you remember a discussion when you got to CU7 about that subject?
I remember, if we're going to get on to, once I was off CU8, and to some degree on CU7 and at the moment whilst on CU8, I was pretty task focused.
Right.
So a lot of these perceptions of overhearing, but certainly the stay put policy was talked about. But I can't give you any context or who said it to who, but it was, it was something that was, I think, certainly on people's minds.
Do you remember whether there was any discussion about whether it was possible to use emergency air supply equipment to assist people coming out of the building?
Emergency air supply equipment?
Yes. Second set bags.
Okay, second set bags. No, I don't recollect that discussion.
Did you yourself have any conversations with anyone in the control room from CU8?
No.
We've got various messages coming into CU8, and I just wonder whether you can recall any. Let me try one with you, and then we can work around that. If you go, please, to the ORR, page 74, which is 73 internally. At 1:43:13, you can see that CRO Derby contacts CU8 and passes the following information about fire survival calls they've recently received. And then there's a list of 7 of them. Looking down the list, the floor numbers 10, 23, 12, 14, 17, 12 and 18. And in some cases flat numbers are given. Do you recall receiving a group of fire survival calls from Sharon Derby in the control room? You didn't speak to the control room at all?
I spoke to control and took down information. That's what I believe I did at that point, but I can't remember any specifics.
Right. I asked you whether you had any conversations with anyone in the control room from CU8, and you said no.
I thought that was in relation to the second set bag.
Oh, I see. Okay, so let's go back then. Let's take a step back.
Okay.
Do you recall having any conversations with anyone in control about fire survival guidance?
Only taking details.
I see. Okay. And do you remember being given a mass of fire survival guidance details in one chunk?
I don't recollect. It was constant.
Right.
So if it was in a chunk, there would have been a one straight after. So there were certainly, my recollection is that they certainly didn't come in singles.
Okay.
So that I think that there were times where they did come in more than one.
If you go on in to the next page, you can see that at 1:44:19, you see that? It says CU8 contact brigade control to confirm. The latest FSG calls 2, and then this, okay, just to confirm, that's the 10th floor, 23rd floor, 12th floor, 14th floor, and the 17th floor. The only flat numbers you've given me are on the 17th floor is 142, and that's 5 people, and the 12th floor is 95. No further information than that apart from heavy smoke logging. Over. Does that trigger a recollection in your mind as to whether that might have been you passing that message to brigade control?
No, I can't say for sure. It may well have been me, but it doesn't. It's something I was doing from 2 o'clock till sunrise, so that particular response doesn't for sure ring any bells. It may have been me, but I can't honestly for sure say it was.
Right. If you go to page 79, 78 internally, and look at timestamp at 1:47:06, CU8 sends a radio message to brigade control requesting the number of people in the flats that were referenced in the previous FSG message, FSG call 3, and asks that control repeat the FSG radio message again. Do you remember sending that message to brigade control, asking them to repeat the message?
No.
No.
Again, I may well have done, but it's not something I would.
And then
recall.
they come back a minute, 7 seconds. 7 seconds later, 01:47:13, repeating the message. You don't remember this exchange?
Afraid not. No.
Okay. Then at the bottom of the same page, 1:47:44, OM Norman rings CU8 and passes over a request for the flats below to be checked. And there's a list of flats to be checked. 5 in all. Does that trigger a recollection, whether that might have been you who received that message?
Again, it could have been, but it's not something I can recall.
Right. If you look at page 81 internally, so page 82 of the document, you can see that at 1:50:49, control room operator Adams, that's Yvonne Adams, telephones the CU, believed to be CU8, and watch manager Merrick answers the phone, and it says that she relays the following FSG call information: flat 133, floor 16, and flat 182, 21st floor. And then it says, CU request an idea of priority from control who confirm the following. And then there's some details. Do you remember whether you or watch manager Merrick requested an idea of priority from control?
No, I don't believe it was me. I can't speak for watch manager Merrick.
You were within earshot of watch manager Merrick, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you hear what he was saying?
I would have been concentrating on my calls, so I wouldn't have been, even though it would have been very close, there's no way I would have been recollecting exactly what his conversation was.
Okay, let me just try this last one on you. It goes on to say, CU asks if control can prioritise calls based on smoke density going forward. Can you help with that, whether that was you or whether that
Wasn't me, no.
Wasn't you.
No.
Do you remember having a discussion with Dan Merrick about prioritisation of FSG calls based on smoke density?
No.
No. Okay. When you were sitting at the desk and receiving messages from the control room, were you on the... just go back, now we've seen the pictures. Were you using the mobile?
Again, as I said earlier, I really can't remember.
Right.
It was it seemed a very short time on that CU7.
Okay.
8, I beg your pardon.
Right. Okay.
It didn't appear I was on there very long. I could be mistaken, but it didn't seem like I was on there for very long.
Right. Is it right that if you use a radio, only one of you can speak at once, and then you have to use the formal language?
Yeah, but there's a protocol to it.
Yeah. Do you remember using that radio protocol while on CU8?
I don't remember how, as I stated earlier, I don't remember how I communicated with control, whether I had the phone or the radio, I'm afraid.
Now, in your statement, you say you were taking calls. Do you remember how you were recording these calls?
I would have written them down somewhere. It would have normally been on a control information form,
right,
if available. So that would be my default.
Right. Do you have any specific recollection of actually doing that?
No, I don't.
Do you have any specific recollection of giving anything to runners to send to the bridgehead?
I wouldn't have given anything to a runner directly, no.
Who would have taken the information from you and taken it to the fireground, do you know?
On CU7?
On CU8?
Sorry, on CU8, I can't remember.
Okay.
I mean, there were a lot of people around me, so it would have been handed, I would imagine I would have handed it to someone.
Right. Do you remember having any radio contact from CU8 with anybody on the incident ground, either at the bridgehead or outside the tower?
No.
Do you remember that you didn't, or you just can't remember one way or the other?
No, I wasn't aware of any.
Okay.
That's not to say it wasn't going on, but I wasn't aware of any.
And you didn't do any?
No.
No. Now, you then say, halfway down page 3 of your statement, after only around 10 minutes, it was decided that our command unit CU7 would be utilised as the centre for FSG calls and messages. I then went back to CU7 with Dan Merrick, watch manager, group manager Tom Goodall, watch manager Norman Harrison, and I believe station manager Dan Egan.
Yes.
Did you all go together as a group?
Pretty much, yes. We all...
Right.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you remember Daniel Egan being with you on CU8?
I remember him being on... No, but I remember him being there on CU7.
Okay. Who decided that you should all decamp to CU7?
I don't know who made the decision, but I believe it was Group Manager Goodall that actually said, right, we're going to use CU7 as the FSG.
Right.
I don't know if he made the decision, but he communicated it.
Okay.
I believe, yeah.
All right. And do you remember whether there was a reason why you couldn't continue to manage FSGs from CU8 and why you had to go to CU7?
Well, we would always use, even for something as small, not as catastrophic as this, we would always use a dedicated FSG truck as soon as practical. So it was always be our default to have a separate FSG truck to solely deal with FSG calls,
right,
so that the other unit could be used for command and control, etc.
Given that all the FSG information was already coming in at volume into CU8, why not just stick with CU8 as the dedicated FSG vehicle?
That I can't answer. It wasn't my decision.
No. Do you know why though
I don't.
that move was necessitated?
No, I don't.
Okay. How long did it take you to transfer over to CU7?
I would say from leaving the truck, less than 5 minutes.
Right. Given that it was going to take time to move from CU8 to CU7, and given the volume as you've just described it of FSG information coming in from control room, did anybody think that there was a risk that FSG information would get missed during the transfer?
It's not a conversation or a discussion that I was privy to. What I'm unclear of is when we swapped over, whether for that 5 minutes, whether anyone remained, and I would imagine they would have done, remained on the radio until I sent the message that now Charlie Uniform 7 is FSG vehicle. I'll be very surprised if someone didn't, remain on the radio taking calls until that point. It would be unthinkable, really. So we wouldn't have all just got up and left. So I know in my statement I mentioned Dan Merrick. They were all on there from the start, but it may be that Dan Merrick and one other may have came in the 5 minutes after I'd set up or called radio to control that we were now a fire survival guidance truck.
And what happened to all the information that you had collected whilst on CU8?
It was brought down to CU7, is my understanding.
How was that done?
I don't know.
Did people physically bring the whiteboards, or did they take photographs of the whiteboards and go to CU7 with the photographs?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember Dan Egan telling you to transcribe all the information that you had got so far on the whiteboards and take them to CU7? Now on page 3, 2/3 of the way down, you say, all of us were on CU7, but I'm not entirely sure if we all attended at the same time. From moving to CU7, I sat in the radio operator's chair. Just pausing there, is that the main one we saw in the picture on the right?
Yes.
Okay. Control had been informed that we were now the FSG call unit, and from this time I was inundated with calls with very little breaks between them.
Yes.
Now, Control had been informed, you say. Who informed Control that you were now the FSG call unit?
I did.
You did. How did you do that? By radio? Or?
By radio.
Right. Which channel did you use? Do you remember?
I believe it was 3, but I can't honestly recollect.
Okay. Can we look at the short incident log, please, and go to page 22. And halfway down that page, at the time mark 2:23:33, you can see SAD, who is Sharon Darby in the control room. And then it says, key, CU7, run all FSG calls via CU7. What does that mark there tell us about your communication with the control room about CU7 now handling FSGs?
I've never seen those before, but that would say to me that they were now aware, and they've been informed that CU7 was now FSG truck.
And would that be as a result of your discussion with the control room, do you think?
Yes.
Okay. And the timestamp of 2:23:33, is that roughly about right, given how long you spent getting to Control Unit 8 and...
Yeah. Time is very much a blur, I'm afraid, but that it doesn't seem unreasonable amount of time.
Okay. Do you know whether any calls continue to be passed to the incident command pump, G271, after that message had been sent?
No.
Do you know whether any messages continue to be sent by the control room to CU8 after that message had been sent?
For for FSG.
FSG messages.
I'm not aware, but I don't see why they would.
Right. Are you able to help us from your own recollection of why, if we look a little bit further down the page, the short incident log continues to record FSG data going to CU8? If you look, for example, at the time mark 2:25:32, do you know why the short incident log continues to record messages going to CU8?
I don't know why that would happen. I was inundated with non-stop calls. Maybe it was an overload and they needed to get a priority to the. But I have no clue. I mean, they were clearly told from the log that we were now FSG truck, so I don't know why that would be.
Okay. To be fair to you, Joe Smith, who was the SOM on duty from about 2:15 or so on that night, told us in evidence 10 days or so ago that, in fact, Sharon Darby or whoever was writing the messages was actually sending them to CU7 and not CU8. But just to be clear with you, you're not aware, are you, of any messages, as it were, leaking out and going to CU8 after the message that all FSG calls should come to?
I mean, I wouldn't have heard them, but I didn't get any information that that had happened since or at the time.
Okay. Now, if we can put that away, go back to page 3 of your statement. You say 6 lines up from the bottom of the page, after talking about the radios, you say, I recall we did attempt to use this facility on channel 2 during the Grenfell Tower fire, but were unable to do so. What channel were you using to receive messages, once you got to CU7, to receive messages from the control room?
Yeah, I believe it was 3, but
right.
I can't actually recall for sure.
No, because you said 3 in relation to CU8, but CU7 you think it was 3, do you?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. If you look just back at the short incident log, and ignoring, let's just stick with that page for the moment, ignoring the fact that it says CU8, you can see that the radio channel looks like RT4. Okay. In each case. Do you remember using RT4?
It may have been 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was certainly the only line of communication being used for SFG anyway.
Right. Now, did you know that Policy 790 refers to the possibility of using what I've called flonops if there are a large number of FSG calls?
Yeah.
Did you use flonops?
No.
Okay. Did you have radio communications with someone on the fireground to whom you passed FSG information you were getting from the control room?
Me personally?
Yes.
No.
You didn't?
No.
Do you know whether anybody else on CU7 did?
There was vast amounts of radio traffic going backwards and forwards, yes.
Yes. Do you know from your own knowledge whether anybody else on CU7 had radio contact with anybody on the incident ground?
I believe so, yes.
Who was that?
I believe Dan Egan.
Okay. Anybody else?
Possibly Tom Goodall.
Right. Was Tom Goodall on CU7 from the start? He was?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Watch Manager Sadler told us in evidence yesterday that he was instructed to use channel 3 to talk to CU7. Do you recall anything about that?
Well, that would make sense. I was on 4 then, because that certainly wouldn't have been me.
Right. Do you know anything, so you don't know anything about how he was told that?
from the immediate start of informing control that we was FSG, for what seemed like hours, my head was buried in that pad,
Right.
concentrating on the information coming in from the flats.
Okay.
There was lots of radio traffic, discussions, communications, plans being drawn up to log such a vast amount of calls that we just didn't have the paperwork, balls in that size. So what I'm trying to say is there was a lot going on in my peripheral vision and sound, but I couldn't give you detail because I wouldn't be able to do that and take accurate information from control. So I'm going to be sketchy on a lot of. I'll try and answer as best I can, but I think I'm going to be sketchy on a lot of detail because my priority was taking information to pass on.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and thank you. I just want to get clear what radio channels you were able to use to communicate with Fireground. So that's what Watch Manager Sadler said. I think you don't remember. Can I just try something else with you? Watch Manager De Silvo told us that she used Channel 3 when radio messages came to her to receive calls. Do you remember that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. Watch Manager De Silvo, who was at the bridgehead, used Channel 3 to receive messages.
Okay, that would make sense. So, I mean, I was mistaken on Channel 3. Channel 4 would make sense for me to talk to control.
Right.
So Channel 3 would then be the communication between a bridgehead and CU7.
Right, okay. Now, just going back a bit to receiving messages from the control room while you were on CU7, you were using the radio.
Sorry, actually, it's a different system anyway. Our system, the main scheme radio is different from the Fireground radio.
Yes.
So they would have been using Channel 3 on the Fireground radio anyway.
Okay.
So it's a different network. It's a different,
I understand. Okay, I understand. So you could use RT4 to talk to the control room, but also use Channel 3 on the Fireground to talk to the
Yes, it's a different, a different system.
Okay.
I apologise,
No, it's okay. Now, just going... Okay, well, with that in mind, when Watch Manager Sadler and De Silvo said that they both use Channel 3 to communicate with the CU7,
okay.
Is that something you can help with? Do you know whether that happened?
I don't know, but I don't see why that would not be the case.
Right. Now, let me see if I can just build a picture of communications when you're in CU7.
Yep.
You're using, is this right, the radio to talk to the control room?
Yeah, the main scheme radio.
The main scheme radio.
Yes.
And with that's Channel 4.
Yes.
Right. What was Dan Merrick? Was there anybody else talking to the control room at the same time?
Yes, Dan Merrick.
And what was he using?
Mobile phone.
Right. And were you both speaking to the control room and receiving FSG messages from the control room in parallel?
Yes.
For how long were you doing that once you were on CU7?
Hours.
Right. Did you observe Dan Merrick recording FSG information?
I didn't observe him, no.
Did you record FSG information that you were getting from control room?
On the control information pad, yes.
Right.
Yeah. Control information form. Yeah.
Okay. And what did you then do with... just take a step back. Control information form is a quadruplicate.
Yes.
White, yellow, blue and green, if I've got the order right.
Yeah.
You wrote... Is this right? You wrote the information down on the white top copy,
yes.
Did you? What did you then do with the pieces of paper? White, yellow,
I think
blue
initially
and green.
I was passing it to... It would have been either Dan or Tom, whoever was in front of me,
right,
to process.
Right.
And then I was placing them on that little ledge as I was coming through.
Yes.
I was placing them in order, and they would take them and then deal with them because they were so far, thick and fast.
Right. When you say you were processing them, what did you do with did you separate them out into yellows, blues, and greens and
No, I
whites?
just put the whole lot.
Right. Do you know what happened to the forms when you handed them over to somebody?
What physically happened to
Yes.
the forms? No,
You don't.
no. I know we had copies, but what happened to the carbon copies and where they all went, it was not something that I was dealing with.
Do you remember sending any copies or originals to to anybody on the incident ground?
Me personally,
Yes.
no.
Right. Do you remember whether Dan Merrick sent any copies of control information forms or pieces of paper to anybody on the incident ground?
I'm not aware of him. I'm not aware of him sending any.
Right.
That's not to say he did, but he was standing where I was standing on CU8 on
Right.
CU7. We were both at the back.
Do you remember radioing from CU7 any FSG details to Watch Manager Sadler on the incident ground?
No.
Do you
I
remember
didn't speak to anyone on the incident ground.
at all?
Not to my recollection, no.
Right. Can
My
I show
soul
you?
would have been controlled.
You say it would have been Control who spoke to somebody direct on
No,
the
I
incident?
spoke to control for
I
the
see.
duration.
You spoke to Control. You
Yes.
only spoke to Control.
On the radio, yes. Yeah.
Did you speak to anybody on the incident ground on it by any other method of communication?
LFB people? Or
Well, yes. Did you speak to anybody on the incident ground, such as Watch Manager Sadler, by
No.
anything?
No.
At all?
I don't even know Watch Manager Sadler is, I'm afraid.
Right. And what about any communications with the bridgehead? Do you have any radio or any other communications with the bridgehead direct yourself?
I didn't know.
Okay. Do you know whether Watch Manager Merrick did?
I don't know. I just remember him taking a constant stream of calls via the phone.
Right. Could you please be shown MET 000169667? This is a photograph of. I can tell you what this is, and then I'll ask you about it. It's a photograph which Watch Manager Sadler took of an envelope that he received from an officer he can't identify when he was on the fireground working on the bonnet of a car at about 2:20 or so. He may have. Now, he then sent that to the bridgehead, the envelope. Do you remember this document? Does this trigger a recollection in your head?
No. You said this was written on an envelope?
Yes. Back of an envelope.
From CU7? No.
Can you help with the words Brett Loft IC?
I think that says that Brett Loft was incident commander. That's how I read it.
Yes. Do you remember whether Brett Loft was, at any stage, incident commander?
I don't.
Do you know who Brett Loft is, Station Manager Loft?
I know the name. I don't know the face.
Did you know what role, if any, Brett Loft
I don't
played
know.
at the incident?
No.
You don't know whether he was given charge of FSG information, handling FSG
I believe his
information?
name's Matt Brett Loft, but I don't. No, I have no.
Right.
No
Watch
idea.
Manager Dowden gave evidence that when Brett Loft appeared on the scene, there was a discussion between them, and Brett Loft, it was decided that Brett Loft would take charge of FSGs. Do you remember? That's the gist of his evidence. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. So you don't know anything about this document?
I don't know what, sorry?
Anything about this document?
No. No.
Right. Do you remember receiving back into CU7 yellow sheets of control information forms which had come from the fireground?
Me personally, no. No.
Do you remember whether anybody else on CU7 ever received from the fireground any yellow control information form sheets? Did you see them coming into CU7?
I can't recollect any, no.
Now, on page 3 of your statement, you say at the bottom, due to the sheer scale of the amount of people within Grenfell Tower, we adopted a grid method on the whiteboards instead of the standard paper method normally used. Due to the sheer size of the building, the amount of the rescues needed, the board was made into a grid to show the 24 floors, and the number of each flats on that floor were indicated with a box. Can you explain, first of all, what the normal paper method, standard method of recording FSG information is?
Yeah, we have a pad, a form that we use. It's like an A4 pad, similar in size to the control information form.
Right.
I think it holds only seven FSG calls.
Right.
So that would be an initial way of logging them. That would get sent up to the bridgehead via on a hard copy.
So not the control information form itself?
No.
Right, then let me just see if I can explore this a bit further. Could you be shown FSG policy 790 that you said you were familiar with? I think what you're referring to, would this be right, is Appendix 3, which is at page 9 internally.
Yes, that's also in large laminated version on the command unit.
Right.
Again,
Okay.
as I said, it holds 7.
So is this right, that the grid was an attempt to replicate this kind of system of recording information?
I wasn't really in on its conception, but that's my understanding, yes.
Now, just to go back to the question I asked, in a normal case,
Yep.
when an FSG comes to the command unit, what is the standard paper method of recording it? Do you use Appendix 3, casualty information poster?
To record the call,
Yes.
control information form.
Right, okay. So that's Appendix 2. But we can look at it just so we've got your evidence absolutely clear. If you go back to Appendix 2, page before.
See, that what we just looked at would be a poster, large
Right.
laminated poster.
Okay, just taking this in stages. In the normal case, not Grenfell, but in the normal case, you're sitting on the control unit, the command unit, and an FSG comes in. You take the call, you record the information.
Yeah.
Do you use Appendix 2, control information form, to record that information?
Yes.
Right. And then in the normal case, the white copy, it says ICP, that stays at the incident command pump.
Yes.
Or does it go to the incident command pump if you're on a command unit?
That would go to, I'm looking at that, I would say that would go to incident command pump.
Right.
And we would keep we'd keep a copy, and then the other copies would go off to the bridgehead.
Okay. And the other copies, you say the other copies, there's a yellow and a blue and a green.
Yeah.
So the yellow would be kept, is that right, by the CU?
Yeah, I mean, you'd annotate that to whoever wants to pick,
Right.
to keep it.
Okay, and what would, fine, and so the yellow would be kept, the blue and green would go to the bridgehead, is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure where the others would go, actually,
Right.
if I'm honest.
And looking then at Appendix 3, casualty information poster, that what happens, when does that get filled out?
We can put it up on our whiteboard.
I see. Okay. And that information, does that go to the bridgehead on a piece of paper or not?
There is a smaller version of that,
Right.
like an A4 version of that as
Yes.
well.
And that's Appendix 3, as it says, to the policy.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
And would that piece of paper, Appendix 3, filled out, also go to the bridgehead, along with the blue or green
Yeah, that's
sheets?
my understanding, yes.
So what is this right? What goes to the bridgehead is the blue or green copy sheets from the control information form and this appendix casualty information poster.
Yeah, depending on the number of FSGs
Right.
that we've got.
Okay. Now, let's look at a photograph. First of all, it's tab 43 of the documents bundle, or MET 000015924. That is, it's enlargeable. That is the fullest picture we've got of the grid, I think, that you're referring to.
Yeah.
Do you know who drew this grid or designed this grid on CU7?
I believe it was discussed by Norm Harrison, Dan Egan, and possibly Tom Goodall, but I believe it was Norm Harrison actually put the grid together.
Right. Did you see him do it?
Yeah, I definitely see him having a major contribution to drawing it out. Yeah, whether he did the whole thing, I couldn't say, but he certainly had a large input in it.
Right. Now you say on page 4 of your statement, at the top, my colleagues on the command unit were trying to work out a system to show also which flat had been searched, which ones had not, and who we had received an FSG call from and who not. This is all ongoing as I took messages, and I could not be entirely sure of the whole system they were operating and who completed each role. First of all, who were the colleagues that you're referring to?
Norm Harrison.
Harrison.
Yeah, Tom Goodall and Dan
Yes.
Egan.
Right. Harrison.
And Dan
Goodall.
Merrick was there. I don't know what input he had on
Right.
filling it out, but he was there too.
And going back to the picture, if we can, which is 15924, do you remember who was actually filling in the information?
I can't remember.
Did you?
It may have been more than one person. I can't, as I say, my head, what I was, for a large majority of it, I was focused on taking FSG calls, so
Right.
I wouldn't have been giving it a lot of attention to way into the incident when things were quietening down.
Okay. Now we've been going an hour. Mr. Peckham, would you like a short break?
I wouldn't mind a short break, if
Yes,
that's okay, yeah.
Probably we'd all like a short break.
Yeah.
Mr. Peckham. Right, we'll break for 10 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while we're having a break. And we'll come back at 3:20, please. Right, thank you. Right, 3:20 then, please.
minutes at the end of term. Yeah. Order. 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 Order.
Right, Mr. Peckham.
Right.
Happy to carry on, I hope?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, just a minute.
Lovely, Mr. Peckham, thank you for coming back. Can I just ask you, you said that you were on the radio on CU7 for hours. Can you help me with something? If you go to the short incident log, we can see that from... please go to page 22. I showed you this before. In the middle of 22, with a time mark of 02:23:33, Sharon Darby records the message CU7, run all FSG calls via CU7. And then, continuing along, after that time, you can see that there are lots of radio messages to and from CU8 via RT4. If you turn to page 23 and scroll down, just look at that in general. I only want to give you the impression of these pages, page 23, and then page 24. And if you look at the time mark of 3:10:51, just there, there's a call or a service request completed. CU8, RT4, persons in flat 153, 2 adults and 3 children. Now, after 3:10, the short incident log, at least, and we'll check the long incident log, but we think the position is the same, does not record any further FSG messages by radio with CU, with any CU. Can you explain that?
Explain.
Can you explain, are you able to explain why the short incident log records no radio transmitted FSG calls from the control room to CU7 after 3:10?
No, I cannot. Can't explain that.
Are you clear, or how clear are you in your recollection that you continued in radio contact with the control room, receiving FSG calls after 3:10?
I'm pretty confident. I was sat in that chair till daybreak, taking calls and telephone calls and radio calls via the window. But that in my mind was a fair way into the incident.
Right.
So that doesn't correspond in my mind to what I believe happened.
Okay. Do you recall taking FSG calls information by radio from the control room when it was getting light?
No, not by then, no.
Not by then?
No.
Do you recall the FSG radio traffic to you from the control room tailing off at any point?
Yeah, it did tail off, yeah. I can't give you specific times, I'm afraid.
Right. Okay. Can we go back to the photograph at 15924, which is the photograph of the whiteboard grid?
Yeah.
If we can just have it enlarged. This is on CU7. Are you able to assist with the key? Do you know who designed the key?
I don't know.
Are you able to assist with its meaning? I mean, could you answer questions about what some of these things mean from your own recollection?
Other than looking at it now and and linking it together, I had no input in its design or concept or how it was. I didn't run it, so
Right.
it probably evolved
Okay.
as you know, as the incident got more and more protracted. But I had no input on its key or anything.
You don't. So you can't help us with what the red ticks mean.
No, I'd be surmising. I've
Okay.
got no hard facts.
Do you know, in general terms, whether the information on the grid reflected information coming back to CU7 from the incident ground?
Yes. Yes.
It did it?
Yes.
You know that it did?
Well, again, a lot of stuff was in my peripheral.
Right.
So, but I know that there would be a key to whether it had been maybe searched or had been given to the bridgehead to be searched, and it was being updated. You know, so the only other update that we would give would be numbers. So the circles and squares and ticks would have to reflect some information on that flat, other than the numbers in the flat.
Yes.
So it would indicate where we were in regards to rescue, searching, information passed, but I weren't privy to what the squares and circles.
Okay. You say a lot of stuff was in your peripheral.
Yeah.
And some of that information would reflect information coming from the incident ground. Do you remember how information was coming to CU7 from the incident ground about particular searches?
I believe it was coming from various sources, radio. I know that there was a firefighter. I'm afraid I don't know him. I don't know where he was from. He was a young Asian guy. That's all I remember. He was acting as a runner. I don't know what he did exactly. Again, because you have to appreciate sitting in that chair. You're with one to another 4 people on it as well. Your vision is blocked, obscured. If you was to sit in that chair, mostly 2/3 of your vision is a screen. So you're just seeing the corner of people. So seeing a man take the ball, etc., I'd have to literally peer around and get off my seat to do it. So a lot of stuff was going on, but I know there was a runner at the point. I don't know what information he wasn't passing on.
You don't.
And there was certainly radio traffic.
Right.
And station manager Wolfenden, Pete Wolfenden, I remember him coming onto the unit at various times.
Do you remember whether he was bringing documents, pieces of paper?
I'm afraid I can't. I know he did come on at various times.
You said that some information you believed was coming in from the incident ground by radio. Who was holding the radio, do you think? Do you remember who received that information?
Certainly Dan Egan was talking on the radio.
Right.
Station manager Dan Egan.
On his fireground radio, was that?
I believe so.
Right. I see. And do you know, or even vaguely remember who he was talking to?
No.
Okay. If I was to ask you detailed questions about any of these flats, such as, for example, if you look at 175, if I was to ask you whether you were able to help us with the circumstances in which a green 5 was attributed to that flat, would you be able to help?
Well, 5 would be the amount of persons.
Right. But do you recall the circumstances in which a green 5 was attributed to that flat?
That I'm just going on what looking at that, but
Right.
to that specific flat, no.
Do you have any specific recollections, looking at the grid as a whole, about any of the
No,
of the additions that were made to the grid in respect of individual
No,
flats?
they mean absolutely nothing
Right.
to me.
And that's true. Is that true of all of those?
There's no actual writing
Okay.
as such, so no.
Can I ask you to look at another document, which is a photograph MET 00015936, which is tab 48. This is another whiteboard on CU7, which appears to be to the left of the grid whiteboard we've just been looking at.
Yeah.
Do you recognise this?
I recognise the board, yes.
Can you help with what's recorded there?
Other than reading it and coming to a conclusion, before I look at, that's the first time I've actually seen that board.
Right.
Because you'd have had people standing in front of it, I wouldn't have.
No, thank you. A rather open-ended question. I mean, you want to ask him whether he can remember seeing it on the night or seeing someone writing things and so on. That's
Yes.
a different matter.
Let's start. It was a bit. Do you remember anybody writing information on the whiteboard next to the grid?
No.
Right. Can you help with any of the detail that we see there and where that might have come from? So, for example, rescued stroke evacuated. Have you any clue as to what information that is that got written up there?
Well, I think what Mr. Minnitt's asking is, do you actually recall someone doing it as opposed simply to try and interpret it for us now?
No, I don't remember it being written, and I can't tell you when it was written, other than obviously it's got times on there. So there's very little I can tell you about that board, other than reading it and making some assumptions, I'm afraid.
Yes. Okay. Can I ask you about another picture? Can you please look at 00015927, which is tab 44? Now, I was going to ask you about the plaque on the right-hand side,
Yep.
which was taken from the tower, and
Yep.
we've had some evidence about that. Do you know where the plaque? Do you remember that plaque being obtained from the tower?
I'm aware of it, yes, it's been spoken about since the incident as well.
Do you know about roughly what time it was taken from the tower and brought to CU7?
No, all I know is who I believe took it. I'm not sure of time.
Right. Do you have any recollection about getting plans of the tower?
No.
Do you remember receiving any plans of the tower at any stage?
No.
Okay. Do you remember ever getting a list of residents?
No.
Now, we discussed earlier on your activity of writing down FSG information as it came in.
Yeah.
Let's get some clarity on this if we can. In your statement, on page 4, a quarter of the way down, you say, I was taking down messages in a carbonated book and passing a copy to my colleagues who were updating the whiteboard. This was usually Tom Goodall. This information was then being passed on to fire supervisors at the bridge, which is the command area within the building where the firefighters would be deployed for rescues. I cannot say who this was receiving or acting upon the information I was providing. Now, the carbonated book, is that the quadruplicate multicoloured form, control information forms?
Yes.
Right. And just to be clear, which pages of those, which coloured pages of those was being sent, do you think, to the bridgehead?
I can't say. Once I'd filled them out, I passed them over, and I didn't see them again.
Right. Can I just ask you, the control information forms, when they come in quadruplicate, are they glued together as a foursome?
Yes.
I see. So in order to separate them, they would have to be, as it were, torn apart.
Yes.
And do you remember seeing anybody separating the white top or the yellow second copy?
No.
Okay. Can I just ask you just to look at one or two of these as an example? Could you look at LFB quadruple 01922? Just see if you can help with this. This is page 1, and this is a yellow version or yellow copy of the control information that Watch Manager Sadler wrote down. He had some quadruplicates as well out on the incident ground, and he says he was receiving messages either by radio or from the envelope we looked at, and then was writing them down and then sending the yellow forms back to the command unit. Just looking at the whole thing for a moment, does this trigger a recollection? I mean, you may not be able to help with the specifics, but do you remember getting control information, yellow sheets, back from the incident ground with a number at the top in a ring?
No,
you
I don't. No.
Do you remember getting any yellow versions or yellow sheets of control
I
information
received
forms?
nothing back at all. Once I filled in my forms, that was it. The only forms I received would have been from the police.
Right. Can I just ask you to look at one or two other documents that were found in CU7 by the LFB after the incident? And this is LFB quadruple 01968. Can I just ask you to look first of all at page 40. This is a white, well, this is a control information form page with quite a lot of information on it about various different flats and floors. Do you think that's your writing?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Can I ask you to look at pages 44 and 45? Is any of that your writing, do you think?
No.
Okay. Can I ask you to look at page 12? Now this is a different kind of sheet. First of all, can you tell us what this is, this sheet? This is form...
This is a standard message pad.
Right. Did you have some of that on the CU?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Did you use it to record FSG information?
No.
You didn't? Okay. Can you help with the handwriting or the information on that page, just looking at it?
No.
No.
Not familiar to me.
And then, can I just ask you to look then at page 18? This is a Metropolitan Police Service memo. Do you remember seeing any of these when you were on CU7?
No.
This is just an example, no? You don't remember seeing any of those? Okay. Now, you referred to a runner earlier.
Yeah.
Do you remember whether there was only one runner or more than one?
Only one that I can recollect.
Right. You say that, you said earlier this afternoon that you were sitting by a small window in the CU.
Yeah.
Was that true all through the night, once you got to CU7?
Yes.
Right. Did you have a good view of the tower from there?
Yes.
Did you, during your conversations with the control room, tell them about what you could see?
No.
You didn't? Is there any reason why you didn't tell them what you could see?
It wasn't my role. My role was to take fire survival guidance information.
Right.
That was my task.
Right. Did you have a communication link from the CU to the heli-telly?
I can't remember.
Let's
I
see.
believe there was a link. I can't remember visually seeing it though.
Right.
I know the helicopter was up there because there was some talk of people on the roof. I can't recollect actually physically seeing it.
Do you remember writing down on the control information form any information that had come through the heli-tele link?
I do recollect getting information about potentially people on the roof or hearing that information. I'm not sure if I wrote it down, but we were made aware of it.
Right.
I can't remember where that information came through. But I do recollect there being talk of people on the roof at some point.
Right. I wonder if you could be shown LFB 1922 and turn to page 16 in that run of documents. Now this is a control information form,
Yeah.
and this was again found in CU 7, we believed. Do you know who wrote that?
That,
Heli-tele, west aspect, 3 from top, multiple persons trapped.
that looks like my writing.
That's looks like your
Looks
writing.
like it, yeah.
Right. Okay. Does that help you with your recollection of getting information from the heli-tele?
Yes.
Right. Do you remember how you then sent that information? Sorry, did you send that information to anybody on the incident
I
ground?
would have given it to my other colleagues on the truck. And
Right.
they would have given it to the appropriate people.
Right. So that's your handwriting. Okay. Can I just then ask you to look at same exhibit, but looking at page 10. Page 10, it's 6 pages back. Now, is that your handwriting?
It looks like it, yeah.
Okay, this is another. I can tell you that this one is in our bundle in white. So this is something that looks like it went out of the CU. Would this be an example of you recording incoming FSG information on a white control information form?
Yeah.
Right. Can I ask you to look at page 14? Do you recognise your handwriting on any part of that page?
Yeah, I would say that's my handwriting.
All of it? Starting at the top, 183, 23rd floor. You think
Yeah.
that's right.
I'm not. Yeah. It could all be my handwriting. Put a slight question mark with the numbers down the side. But if that is a top copy and it's all the same colour, then I would say that's all my writing.
Now looking at page 15, if we can just keep 14 on the screen and look at 15, can you help us with this? Um, 15 looks like the yellow copy of 14, but somebody's added on the white copy underneath the list 92, 153 and 113, which is not on the yellow. Are those white additions Sorry, there's 3 editions on the white copy. Yours, do you think, or somebody else's? Just not judging by the handwriting.
Well, do you recognise them as being in your handwriting?
It could be. I can't say for sure, but it could be.
Okay. If you're looking at 50, this is really what I wanted to get at. You can see that the yellow version of the white version without those 3 editions.
Yeah.
On it, someone has. It looks as if they've overwritten on the yellow copy priorities.
Yes.
Do you know whose handwriting that would be?
I have no
you
idea.
don't recognise that?
No.
Okay. Do you remember at all overwriting on yellow copies?
No.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Now, do you remember there being any discussion about the appropriateness of the stay put advice with anybody that you heard when you were in CU7?
It was something that again was being discussed.
Right.
Not to me personally, but there were discussions made about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you hear them?
I heard. Yeah. I can't give you the specifics, but everyone basically would have had an opinion on it.
Right. Did you express an opinion on it?
I don't remember verbalising it to anyone.
Right. Did you have an opinion?
Certainly not on CU7.
Did you have an opinion on it?
On the stay put
On
policy.
yes. On whether, or be more specific.
Yeah.
Did you have an opinion on whether it was sensible to maintain a stay put policy?
At what stage? At what?
Well, when you were taking the fire survival guidance calls after you'd arrived at CU7?
I wouldn't have. I would have. There's a lot of internal conflict going on with that, but yes, I'd say I would have said, if you can get out, get out.
Right. Let's be more specific. Do you remember hearing any debate or discussion between other people on CU7 as to the wisdom of maintaining the stay put policy, or whether it should be revoked?
I can't give you specifics. It was talked about.
Right.
I can't tell you what time it was.
Okay.
But I know it was a constant discussion.
Right. You say in your statement on page 5, in the middle, that you say we were getting additional information from certain flats that appeared to change, also from the original amount of people recorded to be present. This, I believe, was occurring when several people started to move between each other's flats. I did not have direct dealings with updating the board, but was aware of information changing. Can we be a bit more specific about that? Do you have a specific recollection of any particular flats where people were moving from and to?
No, but at some point during the night, I was receiving further information from the Met Police. I don't know where that information was coming from, but it was being gathered over the Met Police radio. And I was taking this information through the window,
right?
The booking in window that we would use next to the chair. And at that time I was able to look round, not every time, but more than earlier on. So it was either given to one of the staff, one of my colleagues, or I was able to look round and see that the numbers were different. So obviously I would relate, that would then be given to one of my
Right.
colleagues updating the board. So this was quite a way into the incident, Mark.
Okay.
I can't give you specifics, but suddenly there were numbers going up, and they weren't tallying with our original FSG calls from control.
Right. So this was updated information coming from
The
the
Met
incident
Police,
ground? Or the police on the incident ground?
Yes.
And do you know where they were getting the information
I
from?
don't know.
Okay. Now, you just focusing on what you say about several people started to move between each other's flats.
Yeah.
Did you record that information yourself? The people
I-
might have been moved from particular flats.
No, I didn't. It was there was a quick conversation between all of us on the unit as to why the numbers were going up, and I think that's what we came up with. That I don't know if any of my colleagues had got additional information on that, but initially that it was thought that that's probably what was happening.
Right.
They might have been gathering in one flat, if possible,
Okay.
but this is a summation. We have no proof of that, or I'm not aware of any evidence of it. It was just our thoughts on why that would be happening.
Right. Can I show you a document to see if you can help us with
Yeah.
it? LFB 1968, 1968, at page 17. Now, this is it looks like a scrap of paper 3 inches by 2 inches. Do you recognise the handwriting?
No, I do not.
No. Do you remember any discussion about a mother and child moving from 115 to 113?
I'm afraid not, no.
Okay. Now, going back to your statement, you say, and it picks up on something you just said a minute ago, that about information being new. You say some of the information was repeated. It's just a bit further above that. It's exactly halfway down the page.
Yeah.
You say some of the information was repeated,
Yeah.
and some was new information. I was again very busy taking this information, but I was now having an opportunity to cross-reference the information if repeated. Now, when you say now, does that mean that there was a period when you were unable to cross-check new information that was coming in?
Yeah, what I mean by that is initially I was purely taking FSG calls.
Right.
As things ultimately, gaps started to appear, and I was able to sort of get up off my chair, as it were, half a metre and look round the corner,
Right.
and to physically look at the number and see if it was the same.
Okay.
If it was the same information, then there was no point troubling or rewriting or the position was the same in that flat. If the information had changed, then I would obviously let them know that there's now the number had gone up, or it was new information or a new flat, because there
Right.
were some, I believe, that were blank still. So it might have been a new flat maybe that I could give them new information. But if there was no change, then obviously it was the information we had on the board was current.
Right. When you got repeat information for the same flat that had already been recorded on the grid,
Yeah.
what did you do with that information?
So again,
When you got repeat information in respect of the same flat, which
Yeah.
had already been entered into the grid, what did you do with that new but repeat information?
as I said, if I had a chance to cross-reference it myself, I would.
Right.
But it was handed to one of the CU staff to
Right.
update the board.
Okay. But what if the information stayed the same? Did you still fill out a fresh control information
No.
sheet? You didn't. So what would happen to the information where you just had another call in respect of the same flat with no change in information?
What would
did you-
happen with the paperwork? Or
No, let me try the question again.
Yeah.
When you got a call from control...
No, this isn't from control. This is from the Met Police.
oh, I see. Right.
Yeah. So there was no duplicates from control that I'm aware of, unless
I see.
I'm speaking about the further information I started getting from the police.
I'm so sorry. So in your statement, because it's not clear from your statement, you say some of the information was repeated and some was new information. This whole paragraph is referring only to the information you were getting from the police, is it, or this part of it?
Yeah.
I follow. Okay. Did you do any further? Did you do any cross-checking between the information you'd got from control and the grid, the whiteboard, at any stage?
As I said, when I got an opportunity, I would visually check, and if there was no change, then obviously it was not a priority to tell the guys on the truck.
Right.
But if there was a change, then I would let them know that there's new information.
Right.
And it would be updated, the numbers or condition in flat, maybe. I can't remember specifics. But.
Yes. Now, 2/3 of the way down page 5, you say, I can recall several calls that were duplicated, but as time progressed, I was fearful that these people were not being rescued. I could hear background radio information that we were struggling to get to the upper floors.
Yeah.
I was frustrated at the lack of information coming through regarding rescues. It felt we had no idea of the progress of the rescue, and at times from within the command unit, and it made me wish I could throw on a suit and get in there to help. Just breaking that down a bit, the background radio information was coming through to the CU7. Whose radio could you hear that on?
Well, there's various radios. We've got there's the command channel, which is 10. There's obviously the fireground radio, which would be 1 that would have been on there and being monitored. There's the control that would be in the background, control FLONOPS. So we've got 4 that would be turned down, but it would be in the background. So we would be aware of a lot of radio traffic. So we'd get, albeit it had to be low because my priority was taking classified appointments calls, but we had an idea of some of the traffic that was coming backwards and forwards and where they was. Bits of information that were spoken about throughout the night.
Okay. And the message, we were struggling to get above, or to get to the upper floors, as you say. Did you ever hear which floors there was a problem getting to?
I can't be sure. 7 does ring a bell, but at one point, 7 and 11, but I'm clutching at straws. I can't give you details. I know I'm looking out the window and I can see the whole thing alight. And that we certainly weren't anywhere near floors 20, 23, 19.
Right.
And that's what I'm getting at. We were nowhere near the floors that needed firefighters there.
Do you remember whether there was a particular problem getting above the 15th floor at any stage?
That's more than possible. I can't recollect any specifics, but yes, I don't.
Okay.
That seems more than feasible.
Now, when you say in your statement that you heard background information that we were struggling to get to the upper floors, did you relay that information to control?
I didn't know.
Did you know whether anybody else did?
No. But we was the FSG truck. I mean, this I would assume would all be being monitored on the main command unit. And bearing in mind, I think every command unit was there, so I wasn't aware moving into the incident what the other command units were doing, but I would imagine there'd be plenty of people manning the main command unit, which is the ICP, so that should have all been coming through that radio.
Right.
Wouldn't have thought it would be coming to us.
And the incident command pump being what? G271?
8.
Or CU8?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it must have taken over at some point.
Right.
It definitely did, yeah.
So, is this right, that your understanding was that any feedback from the incident ground as to the conditions in the building and the success or failure of deployments would all go back through CU8 with it to the control room? Is that what you're...
CU8 would have liaised with CU7, but for major operational decisions, it would have come from the incident commander, which would have been based on CU8.
Okay. Do you know who that was at any time?
Andy Rowe, I believe, for a large amount.
Right. Okay.
Of the time. Previous to that, I'm not sure what the swap overs were.
Right. Mr. Chairman, it's 4 o'clock.
It is, yes.
And I feel it's 4 o'clock as well as can see it's 4 o'clock. I've got a handful of questions left, and I'm in your hands as to whether we take a break. It might be prudent to take a break now, and then I can finish off very shortly.
Well, for the witnesses' benefit and mine, how long do you think the questions you currently know about are likely to take?
5 minutes.
But then you might have to check that there aren't other
I might have
questions
to
you're
check.
not currently aware of.
Yes.
I think we'll take a break now, Mr. Peckham. It sounds as though Mr. Millett doesn't have a lot more to put to you, but he may have to sweep up a few things.
Sure.
So should we do that? We'll stop for 10 minutes.
Okay.
If you'd like to come back at 4:10, we'll sweep things up then.
Okay, great.
And please don't talk to anyone while you're out. Thank you. Right, 4:10, please. All right, Mr. Peckham.
Yep.
Last lap. I hope it won't be a
Okay.
long one. Yes.
Mr. Peckham, not too much longer, I promise. In your statement, you say on page 5, towards the bottom, that I think I've just shown you. You say, I was frustrated at the lack of information coming through regarding rescues. Just go back to that, because I stopped short before coming to some questions about that. Let's look at the passage. I was frustrated at the lack of information coming through. So, halfway down the screen there.
Yep.
There. I was frustrated at the lack of information coming through regarding rescues. It felt we had no idea of the progress of the rescue, and at times from within the command unit. My questions are, first of all, do you mean here that you weren't getting any or much feedback from the bridgehead about whether the individuals whose information you were passing on have actually been rescued?
That's my perception, yes.
Right. Were you getting any feedback at all about those matters?
I wasn't aware of it, and I didn't feel that the command unit as a whole was getting feedback.
Do you know why the command unit wasn't getting any feedback from the incident ground about deployments, or indeed the conditions in the tower?
No.
Did
Well, I know conditions were hard going,
Right.
extremely, but as to progress on certain flats, that's the bit that I found difficult and not getting feedback from.
Did you take any steps to pursue information from the bridgehead or elsewhere on the incident ground about the success or failure of deployments to flats that you had information for?
I didn't personally know.
Do you know whether anybody else did?
There was constant. I know that Dan Egan on several occasions made trips to the bridgehead.
Right. Did he come back with any? Do you remember whether he came back with any information to you?
Not to me personally, no.
Right.
I don't know whether whether I'd missed any updates, but it didn't seem like I was aware of any progress.
Right. During your entire time on CU7, did you ever speak to any operational officers at the brigade? At brigade headquarters?
Brigade headquarters?
Control room. Sorry, brigade
No.
control. That's
No.
what I meant.
No.
You didn't. Okay. You don't remember speaking to DAC Fenton?
No.
Right.
Adrian Fenton, no.
Can I ask you, still on the subject of communications, to look at policy 488, which is incident communications, which is at tab 12 of our policies bundle. And I'd ask you please to go to Appendix 1, which is on internal page 9 of 16. Now this is a diagram. If we can enlarge it just a little bit to show the middle part of this, the key says that a hard line broken with a double dot is something called Mattel, which is looks like a telephone link, or Matel. And that's a bit too enlarged. I wonder if we can just step. That's it. And it looks as if, in the normal case, there is a Mattel telephone link between the CU and BA main control, or BA ops, comms ops. In the normal case, going back to the beginning of your evidence, would you expect that link to be used between the command unit and the bridgehead?
It would be channel 6.
Channel 6?
Yeah.
Do you know what Mattel is?
It's a handheld radio.
That's a handheld radio.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. And do you know whether, first of all, the Mattel handheld radio link was used to link CU7 to the bridgehead?
We were using our handheld radios. Yeah, nothing else.
Right. Did you remember?
That's my recollection. I didn't speak to the bridgehead.
Right. Do you remember?
personally.
Do you remember whether anybody from CU7 did speak to the bridgehead directly on their handheld radio?
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure Dan Egan would have spoken to the bridgehead.
Okay.
And her radio, yeah.
And what about anybody else on the incident ground other than at the bridgehead?
I'm not aware of it.
You were with Dan Merrick, one of the radio operators on the CU unit. Is there normally a designated radio operator? Somebody who is officially designated the radio operator for the CU normally?
Yes, it does depend on the scale of the incident and how many CUs, etc. But on a smaller incident, you would have more than one job function. But certainly on a big fire like this, there would be an independent radio operator. There would be one on CU8. There would be obviously myself taking FSG calls on 7.
Right. Can I then ask you just to look at two or three or four more documents? First of all, can you please go to LFB 1922 and turn to page 10. We were looking at some of these control information forms before and looking at your handwriting. Is this another example of your handwriting? Do you
Yes.
think it is? Right. And then confirming a similar question in relation to some documents in 1968. 1968. Could we please go to page 41, first of all? Is that your handwriting, do you think?
Yep.
It is. And do you know, it's difficult to tell, but was that, we're looking at the whole document, if we can look at the whole document, you haven't put premise number or number of persons, you've put them all under additional information in the box, and then put heli-tele at the bottom.
Yeah, so that would have been information from the heli-tele who would have no specific flat numbers to give us. So all they could give us was southwest corner, 17th floor, and they're saying second from top.
Right.
So that might be a contradiction. And then 21st floor balcony, that's the information they give us. So that's what I wrote down.
And do you know what you did with that information?
I would have passed it on to the guys on the CU.
In the same way as all the other information?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Next page, 42, please. Is that your handwriting?
Yes.
Okay. And again, do you know what you would have done with that information?
It would have all been given
Right.
to the guys populating the board.
Right. And finally, page 43, next page. Do you think that's your handwriting? We're not sure.
That doesn't.
Does it ring a bell?
Could be my handwriting. It's hard to tell. It could be my handwriting.
Could be, right.
Yeah.
Don't guess. Do you remember being told anything about a rope ladder? Does that stand out?
It does vaguely stand out. Kind of.
Right.
So it's jogging a bit of a memory, but again, all the details I would have had would have been that.
Right.
So I wouldn't have visually seen it or anything. It would have been over the radio, but it's kind of sounded familiar.
Right. Okay. Finally, do you remember whether the CSS on CU7 continued to work or worked at all during the night?
We didn't use CSS.
Right.
It wouldn't really have been. It certainly wouldn't have had a capability for fast survival guidance. I can't think of anything on CSS that we could have used that would have been better, albeit maybe it wasn't ideal, but it would have been better than what we came up with on the night. And we wouldn't be. We could use it, get information off it if it was updated, but we wouldn't update it. That would have been updated by CU8.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Peckham, thank you very much. I've got no further questions for you.
Okay.
I just want to express my gratitude, our gratitude to you for coming along and enduring my questions and helping us enormously with our investigations.
Okay.
I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Peckham. You've given us some very helpful information, and we're grateful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, would you like to go now with the usher, please?
Well, Mr. Chairman, that
Yes.
that concludes our business for the day and for the week.
Yes.
And we begin again on, with your leave, on Monday with Watch Manager Williams, Glyn Williams. And in case you were going to ask me, I see no reason to start before 10 o'clock.
Well, I was going to assume that, unless you've made an application.
There is no application.
There is no application. So we shall start again at 10 o'clock, please, on Monday next week. Thank you very much.